I am Paulette, the founder of MindBridge, and today we have our guest speaker, Kamalesh, and I'll go ahead and let you do what you'll be doing, Kamalesh.
Sure. Give me a second, yeah. As I said a few minutes ago, my name is Kamalesh. I am a aspiring ninth grader. I'm a ninth grader. I am living in Fremont, California, which is in the Silicon Valley. I love to study, and I want to talk about the science of studying, basically. So this is the Science of Studying Smarter by Kamalesh Kumar, and this is going to be a deep dive. And I've read a lot of studies about 50 studies, and I've concluded this type of methods. So what we'll cover today. So first we'll cover about the myth of studying hard, why effort alone is not enough. So then we'll cover the memory architecture, how our brain actually stores information that we read, the forgetting curve, the Ebbinghaus and science of retention, and the retrieval practice is going to be immediately after that. And this is the number one evidence-based learning method. And then after that will be spaced retention, where we'll schedule for long-term memory. Then we'll talk about elaboration through advanced techniques from cognitive science. And then we'll talk about sleep, stress, and environment, the hidden pillars of memory. And finally, at the end, your personal study transformation plan by building your own system. The myth of studying hard. Why effort alone fails, and what research says instead. So, take a minute. Think about how much effort you put into doing something, and yet you still don't get an outcome, an effective outcome. Just think about that. So the illusion of competence. So students consistently overestimate how much they know. Like, I'll give you an example. I had a math test last week, okay? I thought I'll know everything on this, okay? But I might not know a few things. And we can see that 80% of students rely on rereading as their primary study method. And cognitive scientists called this the fluency illusion. Rereading notes feels productive because recognition is easy, but recognition does not equal recall. A study by scientists Rodringer and Karpik from 2006 says that students who reread materials scored 50%+ lower on tests 1 week later compared to students who practiced retrieval, despite feeling equally confident. Like, here's an example, okay? Me and another person, we'll name him Bob, okay? Me and Bob did study two different ways for the exact same test. I'm the person who just looked at the materials, but Bob actually thought twice about what to do. He made an effective study plan. And at the end of the day, I get an 80%, which I'm not mad about, but he gets 100%, Bob. So what doesn't work and why? So rereading. Rereading builds a sense of familiarity, but it does not recall. So after based on Danlowski's effective study in 2013, it's a very low utility method. Highlighting. It encourages passive processing. So basically, if I just highlight all my words, there's no use. Because after looking at the 2013 analysis by Danlowski, it clearly shows that it's not true. And then summarizing. Summarizing is only useful if students know effectively how to do it and effectively what exact things will come on the test. Most people, like me, don't know because, as I said, if it was me and Bob, and if I just summarized and he just summarized, Bob, a quote-unquote effective studier, would basically look at the notes and make a study plan with it. And then next will be keyword mnemonics. So this is short word benefit only. It fades rapidly without retrieval. I'll give you an example. The phases of mitosis. Prophase, metaphase, anaphase, telophase. It works for a bit. If I learned what PMAT means last week, I would know what it was this week. But 10 years from now, I'm not going to know what PMAT means. I would think it's a random thing. And then rereading notes before sleep. I think most of us know that rereading notes before sleep is a very wrong thing. It's a crime in my opinion to reread notes before sleeping. Memory architecture. How our brain actually stores and retrieves information. So the Atkinson memory model is how I like to call it. This was a very, 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 very good model that I looked at. So sensory memory, right? So our memory that's in like our senses, basically our eyesight, our smell, like that. Anything we like, for example, if we like smell food, right? We'll think about it for a few seconds, and then we'll smell the next smell, and then to make it if it's like really more important, then look at short-term memory. This will be for about 15 to 30 seconds, okay? And then you see long-term memory, like a long-term life event. Like, for example, I got 100 on my first final. That's a long-term memory that you'll always never forget. Or something even more fun, like my first time going to Disneyland, or something like that. And at the end of the day, any one of these steps could be lost in the process. So, who knows what RAM means? Does anyone know what RAM means? Anyone? Okay. So RAM, basically, the RAM is like where all of our stuff is stored in the computer. Okay? If I put, for example, all my data is stored in the RAM, okay? In Miller's Law, in 1936, before all this RAM stuff came, he thought of a RAM itself in our brain. He envisioned that there's something like that. So the working memory holds 7 plus or minus 2, like in a range of 4 to 9, basically, chunks of information. Like I could think of my test, I could think of my homework, I could think of my food, I could think of maybe what's happening on Instagram or something like that. And implications for studying, because cognitive overload kills learning. Because if we just overload all information one time, you're losing everything. The chunks will disappear. It's like if you put too many eggs in a basket, the basket will break. Same way. And these like diagrams, right? The diagrams, like you could like draw, instead of just memorizing PMAT, you could draw all 4 phases, and that could help you memorize and reduce memory load in your brain. And emotion and stress shrink effective by the WM capacity. So WM capacity is something that's really important. That is something that if we look into it more, it's a very detailed topic. But in general, emotional stress and sleep deprivation are 2 big factors in reducing the WM capacity. And so this is a 4-chunk model. So we can basically guarantee that we have four things in our mind going, okay? And then 5 to 6, you might remember sometimes 5 things, 6 things, but then if you go to 7 and 8 things, it's like your brain's like stressing. The forgetting curve. So a very renowned person, Hermann Ebbinghaus, and the mathematics of memory decay. So Hermann Ebbinghaus was a really famous scientist from these years, from 1850 to 1909, and he is widely considered to be the father of memory research. So over 10 years, Ebbinghaus memorized thousands of random nonsense syllables like gla, blow, like that, random syllables. And then he just tested himself at precise intervals, becoming both an experimenter and a subject. Like, he was the first ever person who I've read about who did a test and was a test, basically. And I'm not good at German, but I'll try to pronounce this, guys. Über das Gedächtnis, which is from 1885, one of his main publications, established the first quantitative laws of human memory. And this was a revolutionary moment in studying. Okay? His discoveries are really big. Memory can follow a predictable exponential decay curve. So if you guys are in AP stats, you would know what this is. Exponential decay, all this stuff is really important. Repetition dramatically slows forgetting. And overlearning beyond perfect recall strengthens long-term retention. And also, meaning accelerates memorization by 10%. You might think that you might not know anything, okay? You might think that you don't know something. But if you repeat it, you might actually understand what's happening. Okay? So this is the Ebbinghaus curve. So basically, without reviewing, right? And this is, so I'll explain these two things. So this is how much you know stuff and how much information percentage-wise. So we'll start at the first, okay? This is the first information we get. We're all 100%. You know what the first information is. If I don't review at the second one, I'll only remember 60% of what happened the second event. So imagine the first event was I ran a mile. The second event was I did 5 push-ups. So if I did no review, I might forget what the second event was. There's a chance you might forget it. 40%, 60% chance. Okay? And then if I do the one review session in between, in number 3, we'll see that I'll most probably remember it, okay? But then, as I go, right, it exponentially loses. It exponentially goes down, okay? It's very key that we understand this graph, because studying is something that's pretty effective, and we don't want to ruin our own studying chances. And still, how does spaced review defeat forgetting? So, I'll initially learn 100%, okay? This is day 0. I know 100% of this stuff. I just learned it today. And then, if I do my first review, okay, if the thing that goes down comes right back up for a bit. It's like a sharp increase, okay? Because major decay happens at the end of every day, okay? We only need to review 10-15 minutes a day. And then exponentially over time, if I have like for example, okay, so today is May 5th. I have a final on June 3rd, okay? Between May 5th and June 3rd, there's about 29 days. Between these 29 days, I'll use the occasional refresh method. So which is I do one review every other day, and then I do a second review after the first few weeks. I'll do a second review every 3 days, and then I'll do an occasional refresh for 5 minutes between. And then, because if you do a review like this by step, we won't forget everything at once. We'll forget and then we'll remember back again. Ritual of practice, the testing effect. The most powerful learning technique that's ever discovered by scientists. The act of retrieving information from memory makes the memory stronger than studying it again. So basically what they're trying to say, right? It's like just looking at something is not effective, but actually understanding what's happening again is even more effective. So I'll just, for example, I'll find information myself. For example, there's a question that says, who was the first president of America? And then I might know what it is, but then if I research it myself, I'll get a better understanding, better studied method. So again, back to the old guys, the Rodinger and Karpinke, they said that students who took practice tests remembered 50% more after a week than students just looked at the material again. Even when they had more study time, the people who just read it again. And Bjork and Cornell, two also very important scientists, said that in 2008 that practice testing also improves transferring. So basically, like, I might know how to build a car just by looking at videos, but actually building a car helps you apply into making a factory of cars, for example, like that. And some techniques that I find effective are active flashcards, not just making the flashcards. You actually have to make and use them. And then brain dump. So you just have write whatever you're remembering. And then practice testing. I think everyone knows how to do a practice test. Everyone uses it. And then you got to use past exam papers, practice problems, and then AI-generated questions, self-generated questions. And think about it. Even if you fail a question, right, you'll still remember that right answer. And then you might actually get the same question on the test, and then you might get a full score on that just because you remember the wrong answer. And then the Feynman technique. So it's just teaching anything at least 5 grade levels below you. For example, I might teach someone about the Revolutionary War to someone who's a second grader, and then that. If you teach it to someone yourself in that way, you might actually remember it better. Is what people are the Feynman technique summarizes. And then, so the Dunlotsky method, we had a study on this before. I was talking to you guys about this. So we see that utility is how much you remember. Okay, so low utility, so higher out of 10 study techniques, right? If you just use 1 or 2, you might have if you use 1 or 2 in 9 over 9 tests, you might have a high success method. But then if you combine them in this zone, you'll have a good effective thing, a studying. But if you use for less tests, if you use 10 methods, it's not effective at all. So the point of this study is to show that you should study a lot, but study using 1 or 2 methods. Stick with 2 methods. Repetition, spaced repetition. So Sapeta did a study across 16,000 participants, and spaced practice produced better retention than massed practices. Practicing over 1 week, so practicing every 2 days or practicing every week, and then expanding it exponentially. That's really important. And again, back to Cornell and Bjork, despite spacing being effective, students also rated mass practicing. So you have to use both. We had to use spacing, and you have to use mass at the same time. So you gotta make a study plan for that. So basically, you'll first, if you're using a flashcard, right, you'll see a card, you'll see the question, and then you'll answer, and then you'll make a recall. So you think about it again, and then you answer it again, and then you do a response. You grade it yourself, or you can use AI to grade if you want, and then you can do another review of the entire text that you're looking at, and then you're gonna use long-term retention. That's when you do it over a long time. And here's some really good tools: Anki, Remno, SuperMemo, and Duolingo. And interleave and elaboration. And so these are advanced cognitive techniques for memory science. So the desirable difficulty is where you mix topics from all over the curriculum, and then it's not like a block. Block is you just do 1 unit 1 time. But this is we mix all the units over zones. Okay, students who interleaved felt that they scored more on higher tests than people who just studied by type, so by units. And this works because interleaving forces the brain to discriminate between problem types and find out what type of strategies work. You might use the quadratic formula for the first, if this is a math test, right? You might use the quadratic formula for the blue one. You might use the Pythagorean theorem for the second one. You might use graphing cubic functions for the third one. And then if you interleave them, you might understand them more better. So interrogate yourself. Ask why and how. You might you can think about it. If you're reading about the Revolutionary War, right? You might ask why did George Washington want to fight the British peoples? And talk to yourself as you think of just solve stuff. Talk to your brain. Talk to yourself. That might actually help for some people. And students who self-explained physics examples, as per Chi's study, examples outperformed passive readers by 40%. So you can see for yourself. I'm not just saying it; the science is saying it too. And then using words and visuals, so combining a card of words and visuals. So this is really important too, because information encoded in both the verbal and visual channels creates twice as many retrieval pathways. If you look at both photos and words, you might remember both of them, and then it will help you in the thing. Then I keep on saying this again and again: draw, annotate, and use words and drawings. Again, I keep on saying that. It's the main summary of what I've thought of. The art of better notes. So notes are really important. So if you're going to use laptop versus writing, okay? So 300 words per lecture is what they say for laptop versus 150. And this is by Oppenheimer. Not the Oppenheimer from the movie, the Oppenheimer, another person, another famous scientist. And when you're writing in a laptop, you write more and you use less quality. But if you write on paper, you write a lot of quality notes, but not quantity. And but with what we see over time, right? You get a 40% lower score if you use laptop because you're not like actually like using your brain and like not using higher quality notes, basically. Cornell notes, something that's very effective, created by students and professors at Cornell University. I've been using it since 3rd grade myself. So this is like Q column where we write like key questions and keywords, and like these are like the questions or like main topics in the thing. Then main notes, like you write like for example the Q column in this, for example, could be like who was George Washington? George Washington was a army officer for the American Army before they were independent. He was the first president. Like that, you can write all your notes here, but then you have to like put like the questions here or main ideas, and then you have to summarize at the end in memory, not using AI or something. No, use memory for this. Graphs and maps. Graphs and maps. Basically, for this method, you'll basically like put like your main idea. Like you can put an idea of Revolutionary War, and then you put like stemming out. You like stem it out, and then you connect them all together. So you could make it like it's a very effective thing. So let me draw a map. So so this is like the topic. I write different notes about them, and then at the end I connect them all. So it's like a web, basically if you see it. Okay, now we'll continue on. Sleep, stress, and environment. How our environment basically affects our studying. So our neurons in our brains say that during NRM stage 2 they actively replay and strengthen memories. Sleep basically processes our memories. And then a single night of sleep produces more than not sleeping. One night can help you a lot. Even sleeping small, like a small amount, can still help your brain better than not sleeping at all. So, just if you want, you can also nap as well, because Mednick said that, and I read his study. It's very effective also napping if you don't sleep that much over the week. And stress can kill your grade. I'm gonna be honest, stress can kill it. Okay, and stress before a test basically like makes you like forget. It makes you nervous, and yeah, that can ruin your grade. Stress. So to help that, you can do a 5-minute meditation daily. You can also exercise before studying. You can also have some social support and do a box breathing, like 1, 2, 3, 4. You breathe, you inhale, you hold for 7, and then you take down for 8. And then the brain-derived neurotrophic factor, or BDNF, like exercising your work, writing it, is the single most powerful tool for optimizing brain function. And 20 minutes of aerobic exercise before a learning test can improve attention, processing speed, and memory encoding. This is based on Hillman study. Our environment is really important. So I think you guys are bored by looking at all the studies, but I'm just going to say it summarized easily to you. Phone should be in another room. It should be face down. The voice should be about 70 decibels, around like a coffee shop level. The temperature is like 70 to 72 degrees, so like room temperature, natural light, and a good scent, not a bad scent. A good scent should be really important. And how do you make a plan? Really important. You guys can screenshot this if you guys want. So, prime, you do your warm-up, you do a review for 10 minutes, you do deep work for 30 minutes, you do a 5-minute flashcards, you do a 5-minute test, and then you do a 5-minute plan. And then this is a good 1-hour session, 55-minute session. You guys can take notes of this if you guys want. And then this should be a 3-to-1 spacing rule, okay? Review after 1 day, 3 days, and 1 week. So you study, you review yesterday's, then you study, then you review yesterday's, then you study, and then you review the entire week. And then you can rest for Sunday. And then you do the same thing. Monday you do it, then you quiz, do it, quiz, do it, full test. Like that, basically. And what the research shows us, if you just practice a lot of times, it's very strong. If you just practice 20, 30 minutes. In this case, cardio is how much you do the work. It's not actually the fitness cardio. It's like cardio of the effective study methods. And yeah, you have to sleep. This is how it's really important. Okay, so this is a really good method. All 7 methods are really useful, and this should be a plan. First foundation, then retrieval, then spacing, and then optimization. Okay, these are the 4 methods. Yeah, you guys can take notes of this if you guys want. I'll send you guys all the stuff at the end. And the bottom line: study smarter, not harder. Technique matters more than time. Start with 1 change today. Okay, if you struggle, you're learning. You're not failing. Okay, and you have to sleep, and you have to repetition by spaces.